precinct pie, but oh, that's sorry, reporting in progress, no problem. But we just want to make sure you guys understand that we're over there trying to help you out. I will shut up here for a bit and let you address any questions now or towards the end. But we're looking forward to Halloween. I'm going to try to get an extra officer out there for traffic control on Halloween just to slow things down for the kids and just be present. That should be a good time. And just in general, I want to continue to encourage everybody to feel free to call. We would love to come and check things out. And even if our hands are tied with some of the more complicated unhoused situations and those kind of challenges, at least we can try to connect people with resources. So again, I'll shut up for now, but thank you for having me tonight.
Anyone have any questions? Anyone here in the audience?
Around the Rose Balin property of homeless, that population increasing. Is there any news on that front?
Not on the enforcement end. We've been called there for issues and haven't had any new. There certainly hasn't been any enforcement options that we've been able to find. We try to connect people there with county resources, and some of them want them and others don't seem to. I still encourage you to call, especially when something seems like a safety issue or just a cleanliness issue that you're concerned about, your children or your families walking in that area. It's still a challenge. But I haven't seen any arrests or direct police action in that area, but I have heard patrols out there on area checks and areas of concern. Over.
Yes, Amy. Yes.
You get me now. Kirsten? Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to ask, we do have an individual uptown who's having a little bit of a crisis right now, and we're searching for some resources for him. Wondering where we can go besides a 911 call for someone who is experiencing a little bit of difficulty, and he's kind of established in the uptown area, and he's kind of escalating in terms of his behaviors. And it's not necessarily a 911 call, but it is escalating and there's a lot of concern. So I'm wondering if there's another phone number we can call or any other services, because there's just no services on the island for him.
Yeah, received. I don't have any phone number that I would refer you to other than our non-emergency. Even if it was a phone call to a deputy, they are armed with the right handoffs. So don't be bashful about even quote bothering them. It's not a bother. That my only advice would be to try through them and just keep them aware of what's going on. I can talk to you offline about that, or we can maybe exchange some emails so we don't take everybody's thing on one issue. But I had heard that. I don't know if I received word secondhand through you on that, but I do know about it. And I would be happy to connect you with one of our community service officers that, again, generally service White Center. But I had a meeting with, that's what I should have updated you on as well. I had a meeting our community service officers that concentrate most of their efforts in Skyway and White Center. And they've offered to help out on Vashon since the demand signal is slightly less. So for them to jump on a ferry and spend a day addressing some of your locally unique issues. And they are, they're like police officers, but they don't carry weapons. They concentrate just generally on connecting people to community resources, and they have a bigger sense of what the county has to offer on the social side of things. So that might be a good way to address this. So I could try to connect you with them. Over.
Okay, so the best, I get some questions. The best referral is to keep calling the non-emergency line.
It really is. Yeah, you're welcome to. And we will. And if it can't be handled with police or not appropriate for police, we'll try to connect you to something else. And if you don't like the answers you're getting there, you can always shoot me an email as well, or just keep on asking until you kind of get the word you're looking for.
Just to clarify, so do the CSOs cover Vashon?
The CSOs.
We're King County.
Yes.
And
yes,
yeah,
you are absolutely
right?
King County.
Okay.
You are not the biggest slice of the King County pie, but you are more than zero, and you deserve all the services of King County. Their positions were not established for Vashon, but I kind of made the pitch with the support of my chain that in the same relation of call volume with Vashon and problems that need to be addressed with Vashon, and they have the heart for it anyway. So unless someone tells them to stay off the boat, they will gladly come and help us with these things. It's not a contentious thing. So I look forward to a little bit more of that in the future. So I would say yes, the CSOs are here for Vashon.
But
What-
we can't call them directly. We have to go through 911 and have the sheriffs request them for us, or can we call the CSOs directly?
Yeah, for now, let's coordinate through the sheriff's office, and then if we do a better job of establishing that relationship, I don't want to speak for them on the direct line on that, but I think it's very likely that after a relationship is established, or I might even invite them to the next meeting, they may become a direct conduit. But I can't speak to that tonight. But let's address that in the future. Let me get that for follow-up.
And CSO stands for Community Service Officer.
Community Service Office. It's the kind of unarmed star on the chest, but they're specializing in helping the kids in school and give safety briefs and kind of address community type of issues. And they have a backing with a lot of focused groups, some mostly Burien, but specializing in kind of unhoused addiction issues and things like that. So they have a lot of expertise that they can connect outside.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone on Zoom who would like to ask a question for the sergeant? I'm not seeing any hands up. Anyone else here in the room? No, very good. Well, thank you so much for that update. Really appreciate it. And could you share with us that non-emergency number? And we can, for people, or is that not something you can share? He's muted. You're muted, Sergeant. Kirsten, you're muted.
Oh, goodness. Thank you. Yeah. The 3311 number, I believe it, I'm embarrassed that I didn't have it here. It's not something I use.
Of course not. You
I
would
will
use it.
make sure I put that out, but it's 206-296-3311. We'll get you there. Again, that's
206-296-3311.
Affirm, yes. And I will find
Very
the best handful of contact numbers for you, and I will submit that to you via email for distribution as well, since I'm not speaking confidently.
Wonderful.
Some other options for you. I'll take that for follow-up.
Thank you very much. Okay, we have a quorum now, so we can take a look at approve the minutes of our last meeting. So those of you on the mailing list, this was sent to everyone, and I'm going to just change the view here for people. There we go. And pin that. Okay, there we go. Yes, and so I was wondering if anyone had any changes or corrections to the minutes that were sent out. Hearing none, I will move them as approved, and we'll move on. Thanks, everybody, from last month's meeting minutes. Okay, so we are on now to the introduction of the Community Needs List Survey. And so now we're going to turn it over to Danielle. And if you would introduce yourself, please.
Good evening, everybody. I don't know which way to look. This is really awkward. And I might just feel more comfortable standing if that's all right with everybody. Then I can swivel. There we go. On the side. Okay, wait. I don't know. There I am. Okay, it's awkward no matter how we do it. I'm Danielle DeClerq. I'm the Deputy Director for the Department of Local Services. I've been with the county now for 5 years, so there are invariably some of you who know much more about specific things than I do. I don't talk about things I don't know about because I'm never going to give you a wrong answer if I can help it. So ask any questions of me as we go through this presentation. I'll do my best to answer them. And if I don't know the answer, I'll let you know. We were very fortunate to have the Vashon-Maury Island Community Council help us with the community needs list. So they received a small grant, what we call a community connector grant to help. to get the word of the survey out to community, and then ultimately to help us prioritize and help us improve the process as we go through it. This is the second time that we've developed community needs lists. The first time was during COVID. We did all of that community engagement online, and I don't know if you were on your computer as much as I was during COVID, but the last thing I wanted to do was get online at the end of the day and do another something, right? So the response was not exactly what we wanted. We weren't thrilled with it. I think the quality of the product was also not quite what we were happy with. And I think if you looked at it, you would also agree that it was a good first stab, good effort during COVID, but not the quality or the kind of work that we really want to do. Community needs this. So what are they? Let's go to the next screen quickly. Thank you. So community needs this are really a list of services, programs, and capital improvements. So think of things you can see and touch that communities want. We have to develop 11 of them, one for each of the community service areas. 5 of those areas are very urban. That's the Skyway, the White Center, East Federal Way, Fairwood, and East Renton, and the rest are the rural areas. So they're very different. And each area has a very different characteristic. Obviously, Vashon has its own, being an island, and has different needs. The reason that we're doing them is that the county traditionally is focused more on the cities, right? The cities have the louder voice. It just is. It's not that the county wants to be focused on the cities. That's just who often speaks louder, because they have a more direct conduit to the council, to King County departments. They know how to access the county. The Department of Local Services was set up to provide that access for unincorporated King County. And one of the things that we wanted to put into code and did put into code is an official way to convey what we're hearing in community back to the county departments, so that the county departments can really consider what unincorporated King County wants when pulling their budgets together. And typically budgets are pulled together every 2 years. We call them biennial budgets. They are not required to implement anything on the community needs list. The county has to weigh, all those departments have to weigh the priorities across the county and then pick those items to request that most match both their priorities and our voice. But our goal, so the Department of Local Services goal, is to elevate our voices, your voices, make them louder and louder and more consistent and more repetitive over time, so that over time, more of the budget gets transitioned or moved to projects in unincorporated King County. Okay, that's sort of a not so secret objective. Like, the goal is to elevate voices, get more funding into unincorporated King County, and the better we do it, the more folks will listen and the more that the county will be able to respond to direct requests. Let's go to the next screen. So I've kind of talked about this, so I think we can skip it. Okay, community needs this. There are a lot of departments and divisions at the county. I'm still learning what they all do. At the end of this presentation, there's a list of what they all do, and I know that you distributed some of them, but we have more, like little blurbs on what each one does. Funding streams are unique for all of these organizations. Some of them are funded by levies. Some of them are funded by taxes. Some of them are funded by gas taxes and a little bit of property tax. It's different for each one. And I can't tell you what they all are off the top of my head, because we're still learning and doing the research into, who does what and who's funded how. So for us to have the most impact on these budgets, we want to look at all those funding streams. Like, you cannot use parks money to fix roads, and you can't use roads money to fix parks. So what we want to do is tell parks what our priorities are, and we want to tell roads what our priorities are. That makes sense? So when you look at all of these divisions, we almost want to come up with ideas for each of them. And we're going to confirm that those divisions aren't sharing funding streams, because if they're sharing funding streams, then we want to think about how to prioritize if 2 of them are both getting the same money, because we want to make impact, right? Impact is both quantity and depth. And so that's the goal, or that's my goal. So the survey that we pushed out, we developed that with some community members, tried to make it as comprehensive as we could. And in the process, we made it a little bit complicated. But thank you to everybody who filled it in, because we got some great data out of it. And the data is only as good as the number of people who submit information. If we had 5 people submit, we wouldn't be able to really draw many conclusions from that. But with 300 and something, 321 people submitting surveys, there's some good trends that you can see, and there's some good information that's available for Vashon, much more so than some of the other areas that have far fewer people involved. Let's go to the next one. So you can, I mean, this is hard to see if you're not, if you don't have it on your screen, but really public transportation and roads, biggest issue. And I can tell you that from in that section, the ferry is a big issue within that section, right? And then the second sort of biggest policy area, we call these policy areas, is for housing and land use. And then other policy areas are still important, but they drop down. The question was developed as one that was mandatory to answer. So everybody who responded to the survey had to get past that question. And the question was, what is the most important policy area from your perspective for Vashon, right? So pick one. And so everybody was only able to pick one. I'm going to look at, thank you for having printed this. Some of the other topics were health and human services. That got 36 altogether. Environment, farmland and parks got 30. And then it drops down to 13 and then 13 for community and safety and sort of crime, disaster preparation. Youth and early childhood services, 8. Services and infrastructure and utilities such as digital equity or illegal dumping. Got 7. That's the second from the last one. And the bottom one, which is economic and workforce development, so community economic and workforce development, got 6. So, you know, very clear what the sort of biggest priorities are at this point in time. Just so that everybody knows, we're supposed to develop community needs list every time we submit a biennial budget. So roughly every 2 years is when we would be doing this, because it'll change over time. As things get done, we can start improving the list and keeping it up to date.
So I'm going to remind you that we agreed that we would accept questions in the middle of the presentation rather than waiting at the end. So any of you on Zoom or any folks here at the Land Trust building, if you have questions, please raise your hand, because we have time to answer those questions. And it's easier to ask them and get them answered during the presentation, if at all possible, because it's just hard to remember everything at the end. So just a reminder for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure.
Sorry, where does water taxi map on
The very tall bar.
on the executive service? No, I'm sorry.
On the executive
so
service.
which division? I didn't see where it
So
mapped to.
So the ferries are actually state.
No, the water taxi.
The water taxi. That would be, boy, Bong, that's Metro,
Is
right?
that Metro?
Yeah, it's Metro.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
So am I correct in that the budget won't be passed until Thanksgiving week?
The budget typically is submitted by the executive to council around September, October, and then it's usually not passed until around November. Yeah. And
so
we have a really interesting budget this time, because in 2024, at the end of 2024, they'll be submitting a 1-year budget, which is unusual. And that is so that the budget and the vote, the budget and elections are not done on the same year, because it's crazy amount of work. And then after that, we'll go back to a 2-year cycle. So then it'll be back to a 2-year budget. So this is a very strange kind of upcoming 1-year budget for us.
Yeah, so my question is there time to impact the budget with the council?
So what they decided, because it's just a 1-year budget, they decided to give us a little bit more time to perfect the community needs list. And then they'll really be used, sort of officially be used for the 26-27 budget. However, departments are already reviewing all of the survey responses. So they already know this. And we're giving them reports that are like this, but we're also giving them reports with more detailed information that really looks at what was said last year and what's being said this year, so that they can look at where priorities are highest. So they will be using them, but we're not officially submitting the community needs list to council with the 2025 budget.
I guess the point of my question is that anything that gets decided by the county to do wouldn't happen until 2024, 2025, or 113 is pretty overwhelming for public transportation and roads.
Right.
And I'm thinking that it's urgent, and the community doesn't want to wait a year.
You know and sorry, more questions. Then let me address that. So should I address that question though? Yeah. Okay. So I would say that when a department finds out about something, if it's something that they can do and it's urgent, they will do it, right? If it's something that they can afford to do and it's urgent, they will do it. It's if they can't afford to do it and it's urgent, then sometimes we can get additional funding within a budget period. So there, the budget has 2 additional times when we can ask for additional funding or even have funding removed if we're not using it. So there are more opportunities for departments to be responsive than just once every 2 years. So, yeah. Sure.
Okay, Kevin, please go ahead and ask your question.
Yes, and please, is it Danielle?
It's Danielle.
Perfect. Thank you for
Yes.
clarifying. I know about the last slide in this presentation that Diane has sent out to us includes the age and race demographics of the responders to the survey. Has King County evaluated and mapped, if you will, the age and race demographics to these 8 categories? And if not, do you plan to? And if you have, did you learn something from that?
We have not done that yet. We were not thinking of doing that, but it's a good comment. I mean, it's a good suggestion. Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
it might provide us with some really interesting insight. I'm trying to remember if that data is connected to comments. I mean, I think the data was optional. So yeah, I'd have to look at that, but thank you. Thank you. We'll think about it.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Hi. Yeah, I'm going to go next because it's related. Can everyone hear me? Okay. So my question was exactly regarding to this, because we have 321 voices representing 10,000 people. So I believe for equity across the board, it's crucial that we look at the demographics. For example, roads, pretty important for a certain demographic. Workforce development, given the island has a lot of retirees, not as much, but there's a tremendous need when it comes to that, depending on, how you look at the people that are staying on Vashon and no longer can afford to live here could benefit from that. So following Kevin's question, I think it would be excellent opportunity to look at equity across the island, especially since the demographics of the island is changing a little bit. And I'm happy to volunteer to help because this is what I do for work. So happy to look at data segmentation, data visualization. As long as I have access to the raw data, I can help you slice and dice and answer a lot of these questions.
Oh, thank you.
Liliana Belia.
And that is something we still need to do, is look at the demographics of the survey respondents, just to the demographics, like the census demographics for the area. So yes, that's definitely something we'll do.
Okay, yeah, I'm Jeff Schnells. And yeah, I've been working with John Taylor on road issues, and he's all but assured me that he doesn't have any funds for any kind of road maintenance. He says not anytime in the near future and not anytime in the foreseeable future. Mm-hmm. And my question is what happened to the Biden infrastructure money? Is there money there to maintain roads, bring back a road maintenance program?
I don't know the exact rules on that. I know that there was some difficulty with who was eligible to receive Biden infrastructure funds. We definitely submitted some projects for that, specific projects, but I don't know off the top of my head which ones they were. I don't know that there was anything for Vashon on that list. I think they were more like bigger bridge related infrastructure type items. Roads funding is an issue. It is something we're looking at because it's not going in the right direction. With inflation, it's even more dire than it used to be. But we're also very good at roads at delivering service for, the dollar value piece of that. They're doing an excellent job in the road services division, but we definitely need to figure out a way to get more funding for road services. Yeah. Yeah. So what you're seeing here is just that the breakdown. So for each of the first columns that we had, there's now a breakdown for the items underneath. Other transit needs, this is what you were talking about. The water taxi is primarily what is in other transit needs. And then bike infrastructure is sort of next, and then followed by transit service. So you're getting those three as your top. The rest of them all sort of tail off. But it's interesting because when you look at the other sections that we'll go to, the other policy areas that we'll go to, you realize what a big number the 30 and the 50, and the 33 and the 27 are, because a lot of the others are in single digits. So it's still a significant data, right? It's still a big difference. Next, maybe. Any questions? No. Public safety, crime and traffic, and land use. That's not in the same order as this one. Land use. There we go. Here we go. It's right there. Housing, I think, housing, affordable housing, housing repair. That actually is the most important category of all. So even though it's not in the housing, even though it wasn't in that first bar chart, it does show up here very, very strongly. And just so people understand a little bit, the first question was mandatory. You had to fill it in. The questions for the subcategories were optional. You didn't have to fill in whether it was your most important one for each one of those. That's why the numbers vary so significantly, because we didn't want to force people to look at every single issue if they weren't interested in that particular issue. So it was just a survey design item. But housing is an enormously important piece. Health and Human Services, healthcare access. You live on an island. It makes sense that healthcare access would be an issue. And then you had 15 sort of votes for senior services and 14 for homelessness. So they're all, they taper off after that, and there's sort of the three in the middle that are roughly the same. The one that's next after homelessness is behavioral health and mental health services, and I'm sure that's somewhat connected to homelessness as well. Environment, farmland, parks, and open spaces. I was admiring the map earlier because it looks like you have a lot of parks, but there's still, a request for a little bit more in those categories. So county park facilities, habitat and ecosystems, and water resource protection. Those numbers are all fairly static, or fairly consistent, actually is a better word for that. Public and community safety, 12 for crime and traffic enforcement, and then it drops down from there. Emergency management always surprises me because we do have an Office of Emergency Management in King County, and emergency preparation is something that I'm always surprised people aren't more, passionate about, because that's one of my things, but that's personal. I'm waiting for that big earthquake that's going to come and trying to prepare for it. Early youth and early childhood services, 8 for childcare, 3 for childhood supports, 3 for youth programs. And those numbers just get a little bit smaller as we go down the list. And then services, infrastructure, and utilities. So recycling and composting, internet access, and then access to King County services. I think that one's probably related to permitting and having a permitting office on the island again. They shut that down, I think, I don't know, not that long ago, but it wasn't getting a lot of use, but there've been a number of requests to get it back. So permitting is looking at whether to bring that back to the island, if it makes sense. Yeah. Community, economic, and workforce development. So within, the people who selected that the people who actually went in to put comments and chose to select this, 6 for workforce development, 3 for farmers markets, and 1 for small business funding. So there's a little bit there, but I think if we reach a more diverse population, we'll probably get some more in this area too. I think that's probably right. Yes.
I'm kind of confused. Are these numbers like one person?
Mm-hmm.
out of the whole 30. Listen, who cares one person? That's no interest.
So this is
I
more.
mean, honestly, there's more people. There's
Mhm.
more person.
Mhm.
I respect your opinion.
Yes. No, and I agree with you. That doesn't prove that that is a priority for the island, right? Like one person does not. And so this is also the very first sort of step of this whole community needs this development process. The next step is we are evaluating the feasibility of all the requests that came in. We bring those back to you and then ask you to look at, is everything that we want on this list? Because not everybody filled in the survey, correct? And sometimes a lot of people don't know what the government does. So every time you talk about it, somebody's like, oh yeah, well, what about this? If you do that, what about this, right? So having that discussion with that data, once we've filtered it, cleaned it up in terms of what's feasible, what's not feasible, what would the county be able to do, what can the county not do, that is the information we'd bring back to you and then have more discussions around it. And because we also were told that we have more time to develop the community needs list, we thought we'd have to submit them next year. We won't have to submit them until in year 2025. One of the options is also to do more community outreach to get more people to do the survey or a different version of a better survey. So we have a little bit more work to do. So this is more just initial feedback, like initial data analysis. It's not the detail of what all those requests are, which is what we get to, what will impact the budget. This won't impact the budget. This is too high level. Yeah. Correct.
We're not able to hear the question on Zoom.
Let's do that again. You're right.
Asking about the process for this. So
Yes.
first question everybody had to answer, which is what is your single most important thing?
Mhm.
But all of these other categories, I can't remember, did we,
No, you did not have to. You did not have to.
but you could answer as many as you wanted, or were you
You could
only?
answer as many as you wanted. So if you thought that this was an important category, you could answer this question, or you could just provide comments,
Okay.
right? So that's also why, like if you were to add up all of these, let's see, I'm moving around and nobody else can see me. If you were to add up all of these policy area numbers, they should all add up to 320 something, right? But they don't, because we didn't force everybody to go to H policy area and answer that question. It was, if this is interesting to you, answer this question.
Okay, so the total though is not going to be more than 321, or is it more than 321?
The total of all the subcategories could be more than 321.
Okay.
It could also be less than 321 if people decided not to answer that question at
I'm
all.
just trying to understand if the forced ranking, because I think, what is the story that
Right.
this is telling, right? And I think for me, the compelling message is many of these things, workforce development, for example,
Mhm.
right? First and foremost, if people can't get to the island or get off the island,
Right.
the rest of us isn't going to make sense. But it's not that daycare isn't important or workforce
Right.
isn't important, but being able to get to and from, sort of everything trickles from there.
That's,
But if people can't answer both of those questions, then we're sort of skewing it. Is that-
they could answer both of
Okay,
those
they can.
questions if they wanted to,
Okay.
right? So they could have answered for each of the categories, for each of the policy areas. If we go back to the first slide, the one that has the policy areas that adds up to the much higher number, that one. So these are the policy areas. Each one of these are individual policy areas. You had to answer this question. What is your most important policy area, right? What is most important to you? Then if you wanted to, you could go into each one of those and select what is your most important category within this policy area, but you weren't forced to. And if you went into it, you could also just leave a comment and not say what was your most important area. This is confusing, right? What is your most important category within that policy area? It wasn't mandatory, which is why the numbers are lower. And the reason we didn't make it mandatory is we wanted you to give us the ideas that you had for whatever area you were interested in and not force you to answer 500 questions. It was just about, so this one is interesting, right? This one I think has more meat to it. The other ones are valuable because they give you some insight, but they're not necessarily statistically valid. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yes.
Jenny Johnson on Zoom. And Jenny, would you speak up, please, and ask your question?
Yes, thank you. And I apologize, I can't do my video because I have a kind of an unstable connection. But I just wanted to go back and express my I would love to see further surveying. I'm with Vashon Youth and Family Services. Obviously, I'm interested in more support for youth and family services, particularly childcare. From where I'm standing, I see it as a critical issue. We hear constantly from the parents that we serve both in our Vashon Kids school-age child program, as well as the families that we serve at Family Place, which is for families with children prenatal to age 5. It is a crisis on the island. So I would love to see, and I would love to help include some of the folks that I think clearly did not participate in this survey in getting their voices heard and included. Thank you.
Yeah, fantastic. And let's see, can we go to the process slide? Yes, so this one. So this was going to be our original process. Oh, I'm sorry.
Can everyone hear me? So I want to speak to the statistics of this because Vashon has at least 10,000 people.
Yes.
We received 321 from the people that are aware there's a community center here, the people that are aware there's a survey, the people that had time on their hands to answer the survey.
True.
That is 3.21% or less of the total population of Vashon. So yes, it is valuable that one person said yes to one thing, because that could be representative of a large group that do not get to the survey, are not aware of the survey, et cetera, et cetera. So I think there's a tremendous opportunity here for next time to think of the research design on how to go into this, so we can speak with the higher level of confidence that this is definitely representative of Vashon, because right now, from what I'm seeing, it could not be. Yeah, so I think that talk about any of the slides to say, hey, there's a certain validity to what's being presented here. I would question it just because the way that it's been designed, it's been released, it's been processed, it's not following the traditional data gathering that usually we can go by.
Right, and the number one issue is always outreach, right, and getting people to participate, and that's always been a struggle.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot that can do on the back end in terms of data correlation to get to the point to say, yes, this is the segments, this is how it's being presented, this is for the parents, here's a data representing the parent group and various groups that belong on Vashon. Yeah, so I think that I wanted to address the point of one person doesn't really matter. Yes, it matters very much. And also just speak to any kind of statistic behind it's not really there.
And I mean, data is complex, without a doubt, right? And who's filled it in is complex, and the responses definitely skew older. Sure. Yeah.
Okay, so I understand what you're saying, and I see the importance of us. I see the importance of some of this, the conversation, but I got to tell you, I talk to people my own age, a lot of places, and these numbers be embarrassing. It just shows who's interested.
Right.
I know everybody says, well, we need to find jobs and something to work. We need to build a new house. We need to take care of the people in the woods. It goes on and on and on. And then you find out 3 people respond. It doesn't work in my head very
well. And that's why we're doing this, right? So the initial plan was to get the survey out there, get lots of responses, be able to assess the survey responses for eligibility to put them on the community needs list, then give information back to you, have you look at those results, prioritize them, add more, make sure that they were representative, right? Really spoke to the community. But now we're putting a pause in it. So that pause is new. It's for two reasons. One, we weren't satisfied with the process, right? I mean, Vashon honestly had more people participate than anywhere else. And it does skew to, like, I mean, who has time, right? How do you get people really, truly interested in doing a survey for government? Like, that is the crux of the matter. And it means you work with community. And we did our first initial attempt. And I thought Vashon did amazingly well compared to everybody else, but there's always more to do. We were also told by our budget office that we have an extra year. So we're taking that extra year, and instead of just zipping straight through this process and moving forward, we're saying, whoa, let's stop, let's make it better because it's not good enough. And this is what we want to have impact the budget, right? This is supposed to be the foundational document for county departments to know what unincorporated King County residents want. And it's important that we get it right. So we have another extra year. So I think probably we have, if I add up all the months, we probably have almost 2 years to do a better job. And anybody that wants to help participate in kind of thinking about what better looks like, I'd love to hear from you. Okay. Yeah.
Hi. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I just wanted to, 2 questions. Second, I took the survey. It took me about 10 minutes, which I feel like is a great engagement opportunity as a citizen, like 10 minutes. And really appreciate. And also I think 3%, depending on your sample size, is actually statistically significant, depending on like how big your sample size is. Not to say that there are not many opportunities for us to go way deeper with many communities. But also was wondering, I'm with the Chamber of Commerce and in looking at the workforce development, economic development, wondering if you can talk about, I know the UKC, the Unincorporated King County Economic Alliance, actually there was quite a large grant that was pushed through to Vashon for economic development and workforce development. And just wondering if you, if that maybe was a reason why perhaps economic development didn't pop up as much of a concern, right? Like there are some areas that I think the county is addressing, right? That it may not come up. And, you know, for instance, you talked about emergency preparedness and we have Vashon Be Prepared. And I think everyone on Vashon feels pretty darn
So it's not
ready,
an issue,
right? Like, you know, so there's a reason it's not that, at least when I saw it, it wasn't that the small response meant that it wasn't a problem. It just meant that perhaps the county or other folks were addressing it. But that's kind of maybe what I saw in terms of a response is that there was quite a large grant that was pushed through the UKC Economic Development Alliance for like specific populations on the island that may not have felt that that was a priority because they felt the needs were addressed.
Right. And that's the federal funding. That's the COVID federal funding that was pushed into that program. You know, it's hard for me to know because I don't know everything that's going on with it. You know, I don't know everything that the county's doing in all of these areas. So one of the things that we're also needing is a really good understanding of what are all of those divisions that were on the screen earlier? What are they actually all doing? What are they doing in Vashon? What do they have coming up? Because why would you ask for something that we're already planning on doing? And I don't know. I don't know what we're doing everywhere in unincorporated King County, not even close. So I can't answer your question. I don't know whether that's the reason why it doesn't get as many votes or whatever we want to call selections, I think is probably a better word. I think it's more of a population issue in this one because that population that answered the survey did skew a little older and it does skew more Caucasian. And the island is much more diverse now than it used to be. And we didn't get that diversity in responses. We got one Spanish survey filled in, right? Translated. We translated the survey into 8, I think, different languages. We got one Spanish survey for the entire unincorporated King County areas sent back to us, which means we didn't get them, which means we didn't reach them. Unaware, or you're working hard, right? So doing this, when do you do it? You got to find it. We have to have a computer. You have to have all these things to be able to do it. So I think evaluating our survey design, whether it was really worthwhile and gave us the data we wanted. I mean, there are lots of things we need to improve about this. Again, if anybody wants to help improve it, you want to do that. Yes.
Yes, Sylvia Soholt has a question. Go ahead, Sylvia.
Yes. Hi. I work with a group called FIDO, and we've been working through parks, King County parks, to see if we can create a safe fenced dog park on Vashon. For this survey, I don't think anyone who's working for a dog park would question that there are higher priorities for King County than a dog park. But our question is, since the departments are separate, since Parks has its own budget, is there any reason for us to try to have conversations with the Department of Local Services?
If you are already having conversations with Parks about it, I don't think you need to have conversations with local services about it, but I would want to see it on the survey, because that becomes an official, the community needs this, become a semi-official document that actually gets approved by the King County Council. And so being able to give that document to Parks, and they help us develop it, right? They help look at all of the suggestions that people provide and decide whether things are feasible, but to give it to them through your direct connections to them, I think is useful. To give it to us and the community needs us to help reiterate that it's important is also useful.
Can I respond to that? The Parks Department provided a forum in March for Vashon residents to express their opinions about the use of Wax Orchard Road. And we had 1,200 respondents to that survey. And of those, 750 agreed that a dog park would be a good use of that. So I think we do have numbers, and we provided that. Of course, the Parks Department has those. So it's up to them to provide that information to the Department of Local Services. Is that what I'm hearing?
I think you want to hit us every which way you can, right?
Okay, thanks.
You want to tell them, you want to tell us. And now that I know that they got 1,700 responses, I think that's what you said.
Sorry, it was 1,200 responses.
1,200 responses. I'm going to ask if they collected email addresses and whether they'll share them with me. That's what I'm going to do.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, Tim Johnson. I work with the health district on the island, and I'm very used to the idea of prioritizing needs. Our commissioners have been going through that right now. There is a strong tendency to look at the x-axis, the number of people who want something or the number of people who will be served. I would really, really recommend, as a citizen who spent a little time with more marginalized people, that you concentrate on that y-axis, the depth of what that need is, what that impact has happened, because as has been mentioned here, a lot of the people who are most impacted by community services or lack thereof on the island are the people who will not fill out this survey. They will not be aware of it. And as one of the over 50 white people on the island, I would just like to say a vote in their behalf, that you look at them carefully outside of these surveys. These surveys are great, but balance that need. If I don't get an extra ferry ride because somebody else got fed, I'm pretty good with that.
Right. And I think this is where I 100% agree with you. I think there's hold community workshops to select. Well, let's see, that says, so run workshops to identify investment priorities, right? The survey is to come up with ideas. The ideas come back to you. Like, we assess them to say, is this an eligible idea? Is this something the county can do? Comes back to you, then you decide what the priorities are, because that is exactly the reason why the numbers don't always work, right? I mean, so it is about, just because a category was a highly rated category, if there are only 2 ideas in there, and everybody in this room or whoever else we can get to help prioritize those ideas says, that's not really what we need. What we need is something that is this, that department or division can do. Then that's the thing that you should submit as your priority that you want to invest in, or that you would like the county to invest in. So the survey is informational, is background data, or is base data that we bring back to you, and then you decide what you want to do with it. It's not that we're using that to say, okay, this is all they're going to get, or they said this 5 times, so this is what they want. Yeah.
question in my mind when you say it comes back to us. And so instead of 320 people who've in effect said what's really important, now you're saying it'll be the 25 or 50 people who show up at a community council meeting. Is that fair? No.
No. But
So
you and I talked, but this is where we're talking about how do we make this process bigger or better, because Diane and I talked earlier about how do you prioritize for a community? How do you do that, right? Do we do another vote? Like, I mean, is that what we do? I think discussion is better. And I think the island is in the lucky position to have a lot of experts, organizations that are focused on particular areas. And so maybe that's the best way to prioritize for Vashon, that if it is about workforce development, it goes to, whichever organizations have been working on workforce development. What are the most important things to invest in for workforce development? Who knows something about transportation and is understanding of what Vashon needs in transportation? Is there a group that does that? Can we give them the transportation items and ask them to look at it, because they have all this background information that we don't have and that the general population doesn't have either, right? They can go deep into that topic. So how do you prioritize? We're noodling on it because we're not happy with, what we've got so far. We don't have the best answer. So it's all a little bit uncertain because we're trying to figure out how to make it better. And again, ideas to make it better are what we're looking for. So
another question, Kevin?
Yeah, thanks. And thank you, Diane, for asking the question that was also in my mind. I'll point out, let's see, Danielle, I'm very curious. I have several questions. Who do we contact to support development of the future plan? You can just put that in the chat or somehow post it, but I hope you'll do that. In the data that is being presented about the survey responses, one of the demographics, a 9.97% demographic, does not have a label on it. Quite curious what group of folks that was. So that would be awesome if you could help provide that at some point, either now or in the future.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I see that. Yep.
Thank
I
you.
will.
And the last comment that I'll make is that, and this may go towards the notion of, how do we make this process a process that we all feel is inclusive and respectful of our values. I filled out the survey based on my lived experience. But I may hear from somebody else sitting in this room or somebody else who might not be in this room who filled out the survey about their lived experience. And I may very quickly decide that that priority is something that I would change my position on. So this notion of this notion of sharing this result of the analysis of the survey and how we move forward and what projects we bring forward, if there's a way to accompany this data with some of the stories that are on people's minds that motivated them to seek certain priorities, I think that could be very compelling. Not everybody will have the time or the privilege to go through all of that information, but those who may otherwise have that time and privilege, that may be the only way that they can really truly walk in other shoes to kind of understand a perspective that's different than their lived experience. So I'll just put that out for consideration. But again, the last thing is to just make sure to help us understand who to talk to get involved in the process.
You would want to reach out to Sara Estiri at kingcounty.gov. So Sara, I don't know if you're still online, but if you are, if you could just pop your email in the chat, that would be good. And otherwise, I know Diane has it. So Diane can get that out to everybody.
Perfect. Thank you. And appreciate the time to share those comments.
Yeah. It will be a better process if we work together to develop it, because that's how things get better, right? Get a little bit more and different perspectives into the process. So I want to thank everybody for their time. I need to run because I'm going to try to catch that ferry, and I hope I make it. Supposedly it's late, but hopefully I'll make it. And thank you for hosting me, and thank you for pointing out the issues, because I love that, because that's what we're trying to resolve with our pause. And we do have 2 years to get this right, or a little less than 2 years to get this right. And we want it to be something that will have some power. And the better the community engagement is around it, the more we work together to really make it representative of what you all want, the more power it will have. Because otherwise everybody at the county is going to poke holes in it too, right? I mean, there are a bunch of smart people in this room, but there are a bunch of smart people there too. So we want to make it work.
You know, just an observation in that on the equity piece there, that you send some live bodies over here and get the lower income community here who don't have computers, who don't have internet, to get their input. And then the affordable housing issue, which this body here overwhelmingly supported on a motion, is two-pronged. One of it helps the homeless population, but it also helps economics on the island here, because Thriftway, for example, can't keep anybody, they can't get anybody to work here because the rent is so high. People come here, start off, get another job off island and leave. And so it's devastating to us. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming, though.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to continue on with this presentation because Danielle and I spent a lot of time today working on this presentation, and I know it as well as she does. So the next steps are to learn and share, continue to evaluate the feasibility of the survey responses, share the detailed survey data with the Vashon community. In a way, right now, the data, it's so complicated. It's going to take a long time to get the data in a way that other people can actually use it. Share community requests from the survey by division back to the community, because we, all those 18 or so different departments or divisions. So King County's taken our requests and put them by division, and the divisions have seen them and they need to come back to us. They're also going to report on the 2021-2022 community needs list item status, what was funded out of the previous requests and the progress being made. And then the process of Vashon adding additional requests and prioritizing the community needs list requests. And there is publicinput.com community needs, and then questions. So she was pretty much close to the end. But one of the things we did talk about was how to do the next steps. And it does make sense to me to bring in all the many different nonprofit organizations that are formed on this island that are specialists in a lot of these areas, and they may not be they're the people who are working with the folks who won't fill out the surveys, and they will have a better feel for what folks need who haven't filled out the surveys. And I think that's probably the best thing we're going to be able to do, because having a community council meeting with whoever happens to show up, you got to have the right people in the room for something like this. And what we may end up doing, just as a kicking around an idea, is to take the data and take the suggestions that the survey generated and give those to the key nonprofits on the island and say, you guys, what do you think? And then have them come back with what they think about these priorities and these issues, and where their corresponding King County department or division should prioritize for us. I can't think of any better way to do it, but I'd sure be very interested to hear, because there's no way we're going to get a bigger number of people to weigh in than what we have. It was a lot of work to get the people we did. And we're certainly not going to get them all in one room. And if we get them all in one room, we'll be at it for days, right? So that's the best I can come up with.
That is, I feel like that's a group that has.
Sorry, I think the microphone is turned off.
Were you able to hear Deborah when she made that comment, folks on Zoom?
I was only able to hear a very slight amount of what Deborah said, and
Sorry,
no words.
I couldn't
Sorry.
hear.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, maybe I didn't turn it on. My suggestion was I thought that Danielle should connect with the social service network, Vashon Social Service Network, because that's the group of organizations, I think, you know, as you're referencing, most of, maybe not everybody, but a great representation of the organizations on the island that might be able to help reach out to people more effectively.
In that one area, yes, but we have many areas beyond the social services network.
Well, I mean, it includes, some of you are here, healthcare.
Farming, water resources, forestry.
Sure.
See, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's far beyond that, but there are organizations that address that. So there will be a lot of organizations that would need to be brought in and given their opinion.
It's a good start to reach out to the organizations because they're going to give you some input from people that would otherwise not give you the input. But I think they can give you some of their own perspective, which is going to be biased a little bit towards their own funding needs. More importantly, ask them the question of who are their constituencies that might not answer, and maybe look to put focus groups together directly of those groups. Go out and find them, because a lot of times those people won't find you. But while we can all advocate for people, if you actually can talk to those people, they advocate for themselves pretty well.
Yeah, so thank you, Tim. The focus groups are extremely, it's a way to look at the various slices of representation that we have within the island. There is also a field called design strategy that is the basis of it is to understand unmet needs. So in the means of it is usually having conversations. It doesn't have to be with 10,000 people talking to everybody, but there's the follows design strategy is developed by Stanford University. There is a series of exercises that we can all partake in, from a focus group to a design thinking session to meetings like this, and we can facilitate those across the community. And we can put flyers, we can let the word of mouth, whatever it is. There we should do online. There's we should do in person. So the answer, there is a way. We don't have to just go and send a survey. There are ways to really look at the nuances that make up the island and make sure that we speak with a high degree of confidence that we are creating equity across the island. And it's not, we're not skewing one way to the other just because there's more or there's more interest, etc. Like we are being creating equity. Yeah, I'm happy to help.
That's great, because we're all a volunteer-run organization, so we'll need you full-time on this project.
I'll be quick, and I apologize if this was already answered, but someone on Zoom had asked Danielle, there was under demographics, the second largest category for race didn't have a label on it, and I'm sorry if that was already answered, but do you know what that was?
That question had come up, and I asked him. I never got an answer from King County on that. I would guess that it was no answer. They chose not to answer because you didn't see that in the rest of it. So to me, that was like, I am not answering this question.
Actually, Diane, if I could jump in on that, the very last category, or the next to the last, is prefer not to say.
Yes, but they may have
exact same.
No, that's not quite the same. No, I'm not even going to answer.
Okay, well, I do know that the person asking the question, I did ask Danielle, and I hope that she receives an action from the council to help fill in that knowledge, because I think that is important as well.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I've been trying to get an answer from them for weeks, and I haven't.
Yes, I know you've been pursuing that. So thank you so much for that.
I just wanted to also do a little bit of expectation management around, I think this is input that we're giving to the county, and how much as a nonprofit executive, that we are asking our nonprofits how much time to balance, how much time they're investing in this process, that we may come up with a lot of unfunded mandates essentially from the county. This process is not it's not prescriptive to the county. It is suggestive to the county. And just sort of I want to at the chamber, we want to kind of work with nonprofits, and part of what we had hoped to do today was to bring in all of the many nonprofits and representatives to this meeting to talk about the prioritization. And then once it was clear that prioritization wouldn't happen at this meeting, we sort of said to the nonprofits, hey, keep your powder dry, right? Come on back another time when we do it. And just be really clear that just to manage expectations, that this is a suggestion to the county of how they may wish to spend their budget, not a sort of mandate to the county that they are obliged to conform to. And so just, kind of as I think about the other nonprofit folks that I work with, how much time they want to spend doing this versus delivering services. So just do a little bit of expectation management. But I understand too that what we learn here, we may apply to ourselves, right? Like that may be something that we as a community are like, oh, hey, let's focus on this, right? Kind of thing. But I just kind of wanted to just do a little expectation management around that.
Yeah, thank you very much, because it's sounding like it's going to be mushrooming far beyond what I'm certainly able to manage. And so we have to be careful about that. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. There we go. All right. And so further questions or comments before we move on? Okay, we've got them all answered for the moment. And we're not done, of course. All right. So next on the agenda, community announcements. Who would like to share something that they'd like folks to know about that's up for them with their organization or whatever?
Nice, thank you. So I'm Liliana Bailey. I've been a resident of Vashon for the past 4 years. And I would like to announce I rented the place where the DMV used to be. And it's going to be Wonder Factory. Wonder Factory is going to be a venture capital. So folks, small business, ways to help fund nonprofits. I'm really good in figuring out how we can make money and get money. So any artists for your, I don't know your name, but for your foundation and artists that need help. Yes, it's, yeah. So I'm setting office there now. And my background is all things design, from research design all the way to product development. So I'll be providing, other types of services, but the main reason is to help the community figure out a way to fund all these initiatives that we're all passionate about. And luckily, we're a very wealthy island, and we're seeing a huge, income disparity. There are ways to go about it. So, thank you.
Hopeful. Thank you so much. So we have Justin Hirsch has his hand up. Justin, go ahead. What do you have for us?
Hello, everybody. So speaking as a member of the community advisory group for the Washington State Ferries Font-Maury Terminal project, want to highlight to everybody, I put this in the chat. So the next meeting about the Font-Maury Terminal project is going to occur Wednesday, October 25th from 6 to 8 p.m. And that'll be on Zoom exclusively. You got to go to the Washington State Ferries website on the link in the chat there. Get registered under the community engagement tab about halfway down the page. And then they will send you the link to the Zoom. The next comment I made include that Font-Maury Term Proj at wsdot.wa.gov email address. What I'm hearing from ferries is that the Southworth community and the Fauntleroy community has been very, very loud in those comments, and the Vashon community has not. So we need to convey to them that we need a Fauntleroy ferry terminal that works for the Triangle route. That at this point is going to be a longer dock, can't get any wider, so it's got to get longer out into the water. We need a dock that holds about 180 cars. That's 150% of the capacity of one vessel. Get that traffic off the street, get rid of line cutters, and give us something that is going to effectively allow us to load and unload our ferries on time, which will let them be closer to schedule. So Let's all get engaged in that issue. Let's get loud. Let's make sure WSF is hearing from us, and that the other community leaders who are involved in that are hearing from us, and they know that we are paying attention to that Fauntleroy Terminal project. Thanks, Diane.
And your ideas for the Fauntleroy Ferry Terminal are very, very important, and it's important for you to keep repeating those, because that isn't definitely what people need. Now we have another question in the audience here, I believe. Was there anyone raise their hands? Oh, Jake Jacobovich.
Just a brief reminder that election day is only 18 days away. Politicians look at turnout. Vashon, usually I check, leads King County with over 50% turnout. I'd love to see it to be 70, 80%. They respect that. Okay, so that way our voices get heard much better. So, and also make sure you vote, but when you talk to your friends and stuff, bring it up. Hey, have you voted yet? How simple can it be? They mail it to you, you know?
You great reminder. Yes, be sure to vote. And Michael, Lori has something you'd like to share with us this evening.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, I'm Michael Laurie, and I just wanted to let people know that I have funding from King County to help you for free on your property to address better control of your stormwater, sustainable landscaping, and also reducing toxic chemical use in your home. I've had this funding now for about 4 years. I've helped a number of properties on the island, a number of homeowners and co-housing, the land trust, the Heritage Museum, and others. And I'm very experienced in this kind of work. And I might just touch briefly, why would you want to maybe give it a little more attention to stormwater? Well, a major study was recently done, and I read it, and one of the major sources of pollution in Puget Sound is from stormwater. And they're finding that some of those pollutants are having a very harmful impact on salmon and orcas, and sometimes can be harmful to us. The other element of this is better control of your stormwater on your property can protect your foundation of your home, can reduce erosion of your soil. If you have a slope on your property, it can protect the slope from landslides, reduce possible liability issues. So I maybe leave it at that, and I will put my contact in the chat. I'll give you my email address. If you're interested in this help, just send me an email. And again, it's free. So please let me know if you're interested. Okay. Thanks a lot.
Okay, here's another. Thank you very much, Michael.
Is there funding for us to get help to control it, or is it just the funding is that you can give us ideas?
The funding is both for me to help you come out and give you ideas, and I create a report after I visit your site. There is some money available in what's called mini grants, and there's another funding source that has a long waiting list. So there's funding available. It may not be so easy to get it, but if you contact me, I can give you more details about those funding sources.
Let's see. Is there anyone else who would like to? Oh, Art Chippendale. Go ahead, Art.
Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, great. Thank you. I was looking at King County's budgeting process online today. King County and all counties have been restricted for a number of years by legislation, state legislation, that said they can only increase their budget by 1% per year. So that's their revenue. That's all they've been able to do. Meanwhile, inflation has been between 5 and 9% over the last several years. And so King County's budget is extremely tight. It's very, very, yeah, they're going to be very circumspect about what they fund and what they don't. So I think it's important that we center on just, one or two issues, maybe three issues that we think are the most important issues for the King County to fund. Otherwise, if we take a scattergun approach to it, we are likely to end up with no funding. So if we can get the community behind, one or two different things, I think we'll do better than trying to promise everything to everyone.
Well, thank you. That's one way of looking at it. The only thing is that each department has their own budget, and these are requests to each individual department and division. So I'm not sure if we just limit it to 2 or 3, I'm not sure it's going to help. That's just my thoughts on it, because each group has its own budget.
Yes, and if their budget is not, if there aren't a lot of demands made on that department, then perhaps we'll have a better chance. But they're extremely underfunded right now, and in fact, we're going to need to, through the ballot box, we need to start advocating for better funding for counties. Right now, it's just not enough. To restrict it to an amount that's less than the amount of inflation. It costs them more to do the same thing today than it did yesterday. And so there's less money to go around. They actually are predicting a budget shortfall in the 25, 26. So, yeah, I just wanted to relay that bad news so we can think about that and how to maybe adjust our thinking in terms of what we're asking for.
Yes, adjust our thinking and what we're asking for, and also figure out if there's some advocacy we can do as a community council, send a message to someone at the state or somebody to try to help in some way.
Right.
Get them more funding. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. I didn't know the details behind that.
Yeah, I can send you more information if you like.
Yes, wouldn't hurt. Okay. Who else wants to speak up? Danielle, well, look at you. Where are you coming from, Danielle?
I'm on the ferry. I made it. I wanted to thank Art for mentioning that, because that's one of the things I wanted to talk about just very briefly. Art, you're right. There's a 50 million budget shortfall predicted for 2025, actually 2024, and then ongoing. So $50 million a year. And as inflation rises, that would drop. But it is only in the general fund. And the general fund is the fund that the county has it's the most flexible fund. And some of it funds items that are required by code, but some of it also funds items that are not required by code. And that's the flexible dollars that we're talking about. A lot of those flexible dollars are for priority projects. Gun control programs, for example, is underneath that. A lot of the services provided by the King County Sheriff's Office are technically flexible general fund dollars. The county has decided to put them there traditionally, but many of the departments were asked to really look at their general fund budgeted projects and programs and come up with some cuts, because we needed to cut about $50 million for the next year. So it's impactful, but it doesn't impact all of the divisions and departments equally. So parks, not really impacted. So you should still have funding requests for parks, right? You should still have priority things that you would like for parks. Metro, not really impacted by the general fund. They have a different source of revenue. So it really depends on the divisions. And when we talked about, it's really important for us to understand those funding streams better. That is what we need to understand, because where it impacts, where the general fund is impacting it, providing funding, obviously we want to be a little bit more suspect about what we're asking for, just knowing that we're not going to get it. So maybe there are things that we can ask for that that department is funded for that might have more impact for the community. But I wouldn't worry about it yet in our process for the community needs this process, because we just want to get all the ideas out there, as many of them as we can, so that in future years, it's easier to update our list than it is to start from scratch, right? So if we want to be able to update a list, we want to let everybody know what we want, and we want to make that consistent and then add to it or drop things from it as we go on, or as things. But the general fund budget issue is real. That's a real item.
Okay, thank you. That clarifies a lot.
It was wonderful that you were back and could help answer that question.
Yeah.
That's great. Thanks. Thanks for signing on. Okay, so Kevin has a question or comment.
Community input. The Equity Committee is very dedicated to supporting opportunities for people in our community to reflect on the land acknowledgement. Ben, thank you so much for reading that. And to take steps to become more aware and integrated into the community that represents the folks who lived here on our lands ancestrally. So I just put in the chat, Rise Up Northwest in Unity, November 1st and 2nd at the Tulalip Resort. I'm probably sure you can find this online. It's an opportunity to be involved with 15 tribes who are looking to deepen and develop relationships within tribal communities. They're looking for help, and attendance and promotion is highly encouraged. The event is free. I do hope that folks who have an opportunity to have those days available for them on Tulalip, if you're interested, to take down that information. It's in the chat, so I'm not quite sure how it's going to get distributed, but thanks for the opportunity.
Okay, thank you very much, Kevin. And no one here, so Debbie Jackson. Debbie.
Hi. Hey, since I heard voting mentioned a few times, I wanted to say that Indivisible Vashon is hosting a nonpartisan Get Out the Vote event. It's a costume party on the Triangle Route. It'll be on October 25th, and meet at the meet at the ferry dock in time for the 805 ferry. We'll go to Southward, and then we'll catch a ferry pretty quick to Fauntleroy, and then back to Vashon. I think the whole thing will be a couple hours. And wear your favorite Get Out the Vote costume. And we have some signs that we're going to help people learn how to get registered to vote so they can vote November 7th. And important is that we'll be voting for a King County District 8 representative. So it's an important vote, and there's many others too, school board, etc. So I just want to put that out there. And I think we're going to Sporty's for breakfast afterwards in our costumes. So should be fun. We had fun last year, and hope to get a few voters out there.
So which day for sure is that?
October 25th, which I think is a Wednesday.
October 25th.
805 ferry. So show up in your costume,
like fun.
And we'll pay for your ticket, ferry ticket, walk on.
That sounds like a lot of fun. Thank you very much for sharing that. Okay, so does anyone have anything else that they would like to bring up to the community? Anybody? Any ideas? Any guidance that you'd like to give to the community council?
Just the question about the tribe event that's happening on November 1st and 2nd. I have colleagues who are might be interested in that, but I could not find the information online.
So Kevin, this was a question for you. If you're still there.
I am. I wish I had information, but I don't know, Diana, if it's possible to post somehow on the website the link that I did put in the chat. I'm gonna go there now.
Someone, if you want any information that that might be in the chat, you can go to our website, the Community Council website. It's on that brochure. That's right there, and send a request for any of this information. It'll come to me. and I'll be able to get that information to you. Those of us who are in the meeting. How's that? Is that going to work, Kevin, do you think?
I think so. I'm looking now at the link that's in the chat, and I see that it's there again. Thanks, Mila, for posting that again. It's a place called allevents.in. All events, all one word, .in. I don't know if you go there, if you can search the site for that. It's called Rise Up Northwest in Unity Convening. But other than that, I don't have any way to get that information out to people who are in the room. If you are online and you have, if you're on Zoom online, then that Mila just posted again in the chat the link, and hopefully you'd be able to click there and go to the site.
So I am going to put in a plug to join the board. So the community council has room for 12 people on the board, and we currently have 6. And we need to fill the board so that we have enough people to keep the organization running and take over some of the key aspects of running the organization. So anybody who would be willing to do this, we could really use you. And so the current term goes from now until the end of next year, the end of November next year. And hopefully a few people will continue on after that. So let me know if you're interested or have any questions about it. And please consider joining us. Okay, I'm not seeing anything else. Any last call for comments or questions or information?
Yeah, Diane, regarding information about the event that was posted, that's not going to help too much. There is a phone number that I can read out for a person with would give you information.
There you go.
About
yes, read out the phone number. Oh, she's got it.
You do? Okay.
Oh,
and it is at the Tulalip Resort.
The Tulalip
November
Resort.
1st and 2nd. So they at the Tulalip Resort, they could probably also help you with additional information. Yeah, great question.
She's got it.
So
She's
thank
got
you
it.
so much.
There's a form here in the room for people who are interested in board, and there's information on the website, and there's also information on the email that you were sent. There's always information in the emails that you're sent on how to do it, how to join the board. Okay, all right, so I would entertain a motion to adjourn. All those in favor? Very good. See you next month. Our next meeting is going to be Thursday, November 16th at 7 p.m. again on Zoom and the Land Trust. It will be our annual meeting.